Let's put up this headline. Tyre Nichols' family attorney questions white officers' discipline after Nichols' death. Attorneys for the family of Tyre Nichols demand answers after news that a sixth officer involved in the fatal beating of Nichols has been relieved of his duty, but has not been fired or charged. Matter of fact, they kept the dude a secret until it came out. So attorneys for the family, let's put this up, of Tyre Nichols, the 29-year-old black man fatally beaten by Memphis police following a traffic stop, expressed disappointment and frustration with the Memphis Police Department over the news that a sixth officer involved in the stop has been relieved of his duty, but has not been fired or charged. And so the sixth officer, just so everybody knows, we're gonna put up his picture here, is Preston Hemphill, and he is white. We know the 5 officers are black. And according to the police department, he was relieved of his duties at the same time that the black officers were relieved of their duties. But there were not any robust news reports about his involvement in that earlier reporting. And so we got people asking why, and especially in the black community asking why. Now, in that time, the other 5 officers who are all black, most of us know this already, have been fired and charged with second-degree murder, among other offenses, which has raised even more questions for the department about its transparency and alludes to the possible racial dynamics in the case. Racial dynamics all around in this case. This is playing out. Now, attorneys for the Nichols family asked the questions about this disparate treatment. Why was the white officer treated differently than the 5 black officers? And many in the black community, both in Memphis and nationally, want to know the same things. So the attorneys have said, and this is coming from Ben Crump and another attorney, Antonio, the news today from Memphis officials that Officer Preston Hemphill was reportedly relieved of his duties weeks ago, but not yet terminated or charged, is extremely disappointing. Why is his identity and the role he played in Tyre's death just now coming to light? We have asked from the beginning that the Memphis Police Department be transparent with the family and the community. This news seems to indicate that they haven't risen to the occasion. Both the attorneys and David, I think they raised some very good points here. Your thoughts on that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, nobody is saying this to excuse the conduct of the 5 black officers. Obviously, I mean, that sort of goes without saying. But to see this double standard come into place and to see the lack of transparency, what role did each specific officer play in this incident? It took a while to get the video out, but can we pinpoint who in the video is doing what? There's a lot of questions that need to be answered here. What are the circumstances under which these officers were trained in this special hotspot unit, this Scorpion unit? Who was directing that? I mean, the idea that you can only hold the so-called rogue actors accountable, I think, is off base. Who was authorizing this unit to conduct these kinds of stops? Who was telling them what the rules of conduct were, the rules of engagement were? This needs to go much further, even than the one white officer who happened to be involved with this, in my view.
Sure. No, and again, it points to what is the culture within the police department. I think that's what you're getting at, and that people higher up on the food chain, so to speak.
And it's a culture of impunity. I mean, we know this, right?
Yeah.
Between qualified immunity and the ability for police departments to sort of sever the conduct of individual actors from the culture of the entire agency. The ability for police unions, frankly, to shield their officers who conduct themselves in a poor fashion from accountability. We need to look at all of it.
Yeah, no, agreed. And many of the conversations I've been having, I was talking to a dear friend of mine today who believes that accountability, similar to what you just said, that it starts at the top, that the culture starts at the top. What is accepted starts at the top. And if there was zero tolerance for this type of behavior, you would rarely see it, but it's not zero tolerance. And the other point that you make, David, about how police unions, even when it's clear that their officers are wrong, that they're not following protocol, Not only are they breaking law, they're not following protocol, they will still defend them to the hilt, no matter what. But curious in this case, and again, not excusing what those officers did, all six of them have to answer for what they did to this young man and for him to die behind this, a traffic stop. This type of traffic stop, what we saw, should not result in somebody dying. Police officers are supposed to take you in so that you can appear before a judge. It is not their job to be judge, jury, and executioner, but that's what we saw in this case, and we see it far too often. But a point that my dear friend was making is that absolutely the supervisors are responsible. The police chief in ways, everybody at the top of that food chain are responsible for this type of culture. And David, I believe that it's gonna come out that this is not the first time that these officers have been involved in something like this. May not have been as brutal, may not have caused somebody to die, but I'm gonna tell you something. Whether they were police officers, nurses, or teachers, if they got this kind of mentality, they've been bad for any profession. And they being kicked out of the Black community, period. Because not only it is horrible, no matter what the race or ethnicity of any law enforcement officer, for what Tyre had to suffer, it is especially for the Black community. And Tyre's mother made mention of this, that they bring shame on the Black community. They bring shame on their own family. They kicked out of the damn tribe. They got to go. They really do. This is deplorable, it's unacceptable, it's inhumane what they did to Nichols. He didn't deserve it. Nobody deserves to be treated the way that they treated him. And then to add insult to injury, to find out that some EMTs did not even give this young man medical attention. Really? Oh yeah, that happened. So the Memphis Fire Department announced on Monday that it had terminated 2 EMTs, emergency medical technicians, and a lieutenant for violating numerous policies and caring for Nichols. Hell, they didn't care for him. And prosecutors are examining whether to bring charges against these employees. Bring the charge. I mean, follow the evidence. Let me just say that. I'm gonna say that. I want them to follow the evidence. But then, David, the reporting indicates that the lieutenant stayed in the damn car. Or in the vehicle, whatever they were driving. But the lieutenant stayed in the vehicle.
I mean, what you said before with the idea that this wasn't the first time that these officers engaged in some kind of, that's certainly what we saw in the George Floyd case, right? I mean, we saw that with Derek Chauvin, that he had a number of different instances of this. And so, I think you got to think about the culture here.
Yeah, it's the culture, and heads need to roll. And some of this is beyond reform. Not to say that we shouldn't, but this system, the way it is just untenable. It cannot, and no amount of training, because what these officers did, it's in their nature. See, this is beyond training. Not to say, I want police officers to be trained, no doubt. But at a certain point, we got to question people's behavior and be the first, second, or third to say that the way they comported themselves, that's them. And when you got a badge and a gun, you got a higher threshold for how you comport yourself, because you do have life and death in your hands. We're gonna continue to cover this story as it unfolds. Things will change. The Scorpion Unit has been disbanded, and activists are saying, this is only the beginning. And I do agree, this should only be the beginning. All police departments, all law enforcement agencies need to look at their protocols and what they accept and do not accept. America, we got a problem. This will happen again, because we are not dealing with the deep-seated problem of policing in America. Matter of fact, the legal system itself, from the streets to the courts.